What's up guys, welcome back to Analytical Strategy and welcome back to yet another Australian Survivor recap, rounding out yet another Australian Survivor week with episode 18 concluding. And what a roller coaster of an episode it was. So the episode kicks off with George giving Kara the key and the clue that he found last episode, so she could claim that it was her move to save herself rather than George's. And she ends up showing everyone else to try and look like it was her that played that idol. But as expected, no one bought it. So last recap I predicted this move is so obviously just all George, everyone would have known it from the get-go, and that it would probably come back to bite him, and at this stage bite him it has. Andrew specifically out of everyone seemed extremely salty about how it all played out, as I think him and Laura were pretty tight throughout the season. So in what has been a Brawn vs Brawn showdown of a season so far, it looks as though everyone except George and Kara may be coming together to make a play at these two swing votes of the season. And with no idols currently in play at this stage, it could be a very tough situation to get out of. But George is the Bankstown cockroach that doesn't die, so we definitely can't rule him out just yet. So we then got to the reward challenge and the prize was a pretty slick looking 4-wheel drive. And on that note, the cursed car reward was back in action. So in US Survivor, this reward hasn't been in play for a while, but in the history of Survivor, no one who has won the challenge with a car reward has gone on to win the game. So the challenge was a classic House of Cards challenge, to try and stack your cards to reach a certain height, and first there will get that win and get that brand new car. And the winner was Danny, so that was an awesome effort and a huge reward, and you could tell how humbled she was by getting that win, so that was great to see as well. But can Danny break the curse? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. She was able to take her new ride for a spin and for a nice picnic, and she could also bring 3 people along with her, and she selected Flick, Emmett and Andrew. So this seemed like when George finally realised that the Brawn were no longer working with him, which again was a little bit of a late realisation given that they have been pretty open about feeling betrayed by him since Gerald was voted out. If they were really still playing up the act of aligning with him, I personally would have liked the idea of actually bringing him on reward with them, separating him from the Brain so he couldn't make any last minute moves, and making him feel comfortable before voting him out of the game. However, I can also understand the likes of bringing along someone like Andrew, who you may try and solidify these new bonds with as well. So Danny's choice did make sense, especially when you all do have a common enemy in mind, and that enemy is King George. So although things are looking tough for George in this episode, he took the position he was in as an opportunity to try and solidify a solid 4, with the people not selected on the reward, and they were Way, Hayley, Kara and himself. The great thing about George is he sees everything as an opportunity, and that's what really makes him such a great and also very dangerous player. Hayley has really taken this information on board, and will be the new swing vote that will play both sides, and have all the power on who will go home next. Hayley realises that those 3 Brawn are all highly likely never going to split up in this game, so it is something she strongly has to consider moving forward in what is best for her game. Say if there is a final 4 of Hayley, George, Way and Kara, Hayley automatically becomes the biggest challenge threat in the game by a long way, like a huge margin. She can probably take out George at the 4, and then I really can't see her losing in any challenge ever to get to that top 2 to either Way or Kara, and should get her pick of who she wants to sit next to with that final 2. So at the next vote, George is really looking to target Emmett, as he's the biggest physical and challenge threat left in the game, so it will really come down to what Hayley thinks is best for the longevity of her personal game. So then the immunity challenge was another Survivor classic, holding a very thin rope and standing on very small footholds, and who can push through the pain the longest wins. So there was actually a lot of chitter chatter in this challenge, with Andrew especially getting quite chirpy around George dropping out first, thinking he did it on purpose to try and play on everyone's minds to try and keep the weak challenge competitors in the game. I absolutely loved Emmett's comment at this moment saying, "I think you're reading a little bit far too into it, mate. He was just a little bit off, eh?" It did seem a little bit this episode, the paranoia of Laura going home was getting to Andrew a little bit, as he was really persistent on a lot of repeated conversations to confirm everyone was on board to take out George. But once Kara dropped, the Brawn plus Andrew were happy to see anyone left standing in this challenge win this challenge and win immunity. So to make the challenge a little bit harder and to minimise how long it would go for, they all mutually decided to let go of the rope, and it ended up coming down to the first all-female showdown between Flick and Hayley, with Hayley becoming the very first woman this season to win immunity. This challenge in particular really looked to be made for Hayley, and I think she would have won it regardless, even if everyone went balls to the wall and all tried to really win it. So Hayley did win this challenge and will also likely have the power on who will go home this evening. And it's always a great opportunity to make a bigger move when you know you personally cannot be voted out of the game. So back at camp, the first plan of action with the Brawns along with Andrew, Wei and Hayley are devising a split vote on George and Kara. So they're going to put 4 votes on George and 2 votes on Kara. So if they have another idol, then a revote would occur if an idol was played on George, and then Kara would go home on the revote. So this makes the plan for Hayley and Wei much easier to stick with George and Kara in the event that they wish to do so. Then they can take out Emmett, as those 4 solid votes of Hayley, Wei, George and Kara would outweigh the Brawn and Andrew's votes if they are being split. So whilst Hayley and Wei are discussing their options at the water well, George was just laying behind them in the grass listening to everything they were saying. It was a great scene. And this included the concluding decision of Wei saying she thinks the right move is to get rid of the power player in George, as these opportunities just keep passing them by. So with this information of the majority gunning for George, at this stage there's really only one way he can stay in the game, and of course it is something he's very familiar with, and that is finding a hidden immunity idol. So George's right hand woman in Kara ends up finding the idol yet again, and I'm really starting to get deja vu here. So at this stage of the episode, I'm thinking it's very likely Kara is going to play her idol on George, there'll be 2 votes on Emmett, and 2 votes on Kara, and then on the revote Kara will go home. Which would have meant Kara could have gotten voted out twice in this game, in this season alone, from playing an idol on George. That would be absolutely crazy. So this was looking likely how it all would have really shaped out, and that was until Emmett mentioned to Hayley that he was looking to be in a final 5 situation with people he is happy in winning the game, with Hayley clearly appearing to be on the bottom of that 5. So whilst this obviously is not going to fly with Hayley, she's playing to win the game, she's not playing for 5th, it also tells her that if she goes to the end with someone outside of that 5 that he mentioned, she's probably got Emmett's jury vote for the win wrapped up as well. So this really gives Hayley all the information she needs to realise being in a final 4 with George, Kara and Wei is probably a much more enticing offer than she received from the Brawn members. So at Tribal Council, there is a little bit of back and forth between Emmett and George, but it is ultimately going to come down to which way Hayley and Wei will vote. Will they vote with the Brawn members and then likely send Kara home on the revote after she inevitably plays that idol on George, right? Or will they vote out Emmett and try and stay with this new strong 4 for a clearer path to get to the end? In the end, they did decide to stick with this alliance of 4, but the idol was not played on anyone, and Emmett was sent home. Wow! I was really shocked when Kara didn't play the idol. I mean, I thought it was almost a guarantee she was going to play it. Hayley must have told Kara and George prior to Tribal in advance that they were safe, and that's why they didn't need to play the idol, which was not shown in the edit. Either that, or Kara decided to start playing her own individual game, knowing they would target George over her this Tribal Council, and keep the idol in her pocket for when they came to her for the next episode after he went home. But seriously, what a huge result for these two, both looking like they were in huge danger throughout this entire episode, and finishing it with them both still being in the game and also having an idol between them if things go haywire at later votes this season. It was really amazing to see them, but in particular George, keep on grinding and getting out of these sticky situations. It's honestly great television. It was disappointing to see Emmett go, as he has been such a great character, which turned into a pretty decent player as well this season, but even as he mentioned in his parting words, if Hayley joined his side of the numbers, she would have been gone in 5th place, and he likely would have taken it all the way to the end. So regardless, if George and Kara still have an idol, this was definitely the correct move for Hayley to make. She is now in an alliance of 4 when there is 7 left in the game. Once Andrew is out of the picture, she is easily the biggest challenge threat left in the game as well, and as mentioned, if she does get it to a 4 of Hayley, Wei, George and Kara, I can't see there being any challenge that she will lose. So I think everything is aligning for her really well to take it all the way to the end and be the winner of this season. But that's all there is for this week, and based on the previews, it looks as though next week we will be wrapping up this season with a winner to be crowned, so it may look like everything is coming to a close. It has been an absolute grind pumping out these recaps every single day, so to everyone who has been here since episode 1 all the way until now, just a huge thank you to each and every one of you. It has been awesome to go and read through all your different perspectives in the comments, and to build this little community together. It has been a hell of a ride, but it is not over yet, and I'll be bringing you more of this season as it draws to a close. But until then, that is all for now. This is Analytical Strategy signing out once again, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.